Hello, our friends, Evolutionary Energy Arts family.
Hello there. Welcome back.
Welcome back, guys. So we did this first video, some new evidence of Bigfoot. Fun stuff, very, very enjoyable. Please do check it out. We want to thank everybody for their support on Patreon, also with YouTube memberships and Ko-Fi. We couldn't do it without you guys.
Indeed. Thank you so much.
Yeah. Sorry, I just can't help but laugh at ourselves. Okay, on to more somber, sober, serious stuff here. Major 7.3 earthquake hits near Luganville, Vanuatu. This one was at 72 miles depth, 115.8 kilometers deep. So it's still a little bit more towards the deep side, what does that mean? It means it's moving energy. And usually you'll have less surface issues with a deep earthquake, so you can see where the location is. It's interesting because we did have a large one, like if we go back and we look at 30 days significant. There you go. So we see a 7.5 and a 7.3. Might as well take a peek at the other significant ones in the U.S. And elsewhere. 6.5 Yamada, Japan. 6.4 at 2 Station, Alaska, across over here. We have a 6.3 in Chile. 6.6 Northern Mid-Atlantic Ridge. 6.6 South Shetland Islands. 5.5 in Greece. This is within the last month. And then we had this 4.9 Red River Parish, Louisiana, 11.1 kilometers. Ooh, 11.1. That's interesting. And a 4.1 in Nebraska at 5 kilometers. I was getting the impression in Nebraska and in Kansas that there's some deep underground military base work being done. So let's go back to let's first look at the heliplots, because that's a significant quake, and you can see the world is really shaking. China, look at that. Antarctica, everywhere you look, there's a lot of shaking going on. We are in for, I think, a really, really interesting next 6 months. I think we're going to see some amazing events, probably some of the maybe more momentous times of our lives, it really feels, in the next 6 months coming up. Kazakhstan, the Azores, you're looking all over the world. This is the Indian Ocean shaking like, just incredible shaking. Falkland Islands, Japan, Canada, Scotland, everywhere. It is shaking like crazy. The heliplots are really showing some serious activity. This is Fiji. So these show shaking in these local areas, California. And what does it give us a clue about? Well, the Earth is getting ready. It's letting off some steam. I think there's a lot more steam to be let off. New Mexico, Turkey, you get the picture, right? So let's go back over here and, you can see what else is cooking. There is a pretty significant swarm going on in Texas, by the way. 66 quakes. We're looking at 66 quakes right here in Texas. That's quite a bit. Texas is active, and it is because of the fracking, no matter what they want to say. It's the oil industry that's doing this. It's setting us up for a much bigger, you could say, time bomb situation when the big quakes come. And the big quakes are coming. It feels, I would be surprised. I would almost be surprised if we don't have some of those great quakes we've been talking about in like the next 6 months. I really do think it's coming. 2 more down here south of Austin. The one that hits me the most is this. This hits me more than Vanuatu. Why? It's because of the location, the Gulf of America, almost dead center. In the Gulf of America, remember, it was the Gulf of Mexico. Gulf of America. Why? How about 3.9? The fact that it's a 3.9 is, to me, it's like a coded signature to everybody that something's getting ready to happen. A long time ago, I did a video talking about volcanic activity in the Gulf. It was, I think, the second or third biggest video we ever did, well over 100,000 views. And, I think there's a lot of indication that this might not be natural, but it could also trigger something natural. So as you see, it's a little bit southeast of New Orleans, but almost dead center, right in the Gulf of America. The reason this bothers me so much is because of what we've seen in the past. And this is, again, talking about that 7.3 in Vanuatu. I do think when we're talking about that too, look for something the same or maybe even a little bit larger to occur, and I'll jump back to this in a second, in this greater area. So we crept a little bit eastward, again, Indonesia, Philippines, especially Indonesia, Philippines, but even up into Japan. I would be on the lookout for something similar size or maybe slightly larger. But do you remember this? Navy's experimental explosion registers a 3.9 magnitude earthquake off the Florida coast. When was this? There you go. June 21st, 2021. So they said it was our Navy that did that 3.9. This is June 21st, 2021. Experimental explosion triggered by the Navy about 100 miles off the Florida coast, registered as a 3.9 magnitude earthquake on Friday. It's a blast known as a shock trial, an explosion meant to test the ship's ability to withstand nearby detonations. The Navy was testing the new aircraft carrier, the USS Gerald R. Ford. Oh, that's a little synchronous, isn't it? Synchronistic there. These type of detonations been purposely triggered for decades after the Navy discovered nearby explosions could knock out key systems on the vessel, even when they don't cause physical damage. That marked the first time the Navy has conducted shock trials since it tested the USS Theodore Roosevelt aircraft carrier back in '87. That was in 2021. Now, we had in 2024, this was registering a 3.9. This is calling it a 4.0 now off of Florida's East Coast. This is in 2024, February 9th, 2024. That's curious because, you don't really get quakes in these areas that often. You really, really don't. When we look to this, again, it talks about shock trials. I think it is shock. I think it really reminds me more of shock and awe. When we remember the slogan shock and awe with Iraq, obviously, because I think it's about really this. It's about the potential for tsunami bombs. And Russia's Poseidon 2M39, also known as Status 6 or Canyon, is a nuclear-powered autonomous underwater drone designed to travel along the ocean floor and detonate near coastlines to create radioactive tsunamis. First announced in 2015, reportedly tested in the Arctic, the weapon is intended to be deployed on specialized submarines like the Belgorod and the newer Khabarovsk with a reported yield of up to 100 megatons. The system is described as a retaliatory doomsday weapon capable of inundating coastal cities with toxic radioactive water. Anybody hear anything about water problems coming in the future? Anybody hear anybody giving you information about contaminated water recently? Does that ring a bell?
Yeah, I've heard some things about water from some big companies.
Big companies, but also there's been intuitive psychics talking about the fact that this is going to be in the news big time. There's going to be water contamination problems that will be preeminent in people's minds during this year. That's what they are picking up in the relatively near time frame. So here you have drones that can travel up to 6,200 miles at speeds of 50 to 115 miles an hour at depths of 1,000 meters, over 3,300 feet deep. And so they're uninterceptable by current defense systems. Russian officials claim it can generate waves up to 1,000 feet high. Many Western nuclear physicists argue that the energy required to create a tsunami of that magnitude is likely unrealistic, suggesting that the weapon might be a psychological deterrent or a negotiation card. But even if it's not 1,000 feet high, I mean, a wave of 30 feet could cause tons of problems. What if they could get 1/10 of that? 100-foot waves coming in on the coast. What would that do? What if they were contaminated? This is something that, by the way, Russia has. I mean, you can see this. There's been Russian politicians that have threatened to do this to the UK. And this is exactly what many psychics have picked up. And I've showed you that the submarines come close to the U.S. coast, and probably they would hit the U.K. too simultaneously. And they unleash these type of things along the coastlines. The one word that we did get from the guides when we were wondering where do we end up settling, trying to find a place where it's easy to grow food, and in a good climate too, was they told us don't be along the coastlines. They said when we pressed, and said this is with Cindy under trance, there's going to be such a wave of people leaving the coastlines of the U.S. You don't want to be along the coastlines because, again, there's going to be inundations. There's going to be a lot of issues with the water. Now, a lot of people will interpret that to be the shifting of the poles. But before that happens, WW3 is unfolding right now. And it's been telegraphed. These nuclear tsunamis, tsunami bombs, tsunami drones. As you can see here, Newsweek, Putin's Poseidon and radioactive tidal wave of destruction. You can see 2023, 2025, 2021. It's been so telegraphed, they've told us a million times. 2019, Russian government reported it leaked a diagram of a Poseidon-like weapon in 2015 that would carry. So, you can see this has been so telegraphed. They told us so. July 24th, 2018. Yeah, this is talking about a 300-foot tsunami. So, whether it's 300 foot, 1,000 foot, 100 foot, 30 foot, that can cause tons of damage. This is what I think will be the first real blows of WW3. This is what I've kind of always felt. It's something that looks like it could be a natural disaster that causes confusion. You don't really know what's happening. And then, the outright invasion would happen after that. Because it would cause such devastation all around the country that you wouldn't really know what's going on. Such massive confusion. And the intent is not to terrify people and feed the louche. The intent is to just say, hey, this is part of the script that they have put out there for years. They always telegraph what's coming. So, again, when you see this, another 3.9, to me, right in the middle of the Gulf, what would that do even if it was 30, 40, 50 foot? It would cause such devastation. Houston is one of the most important ports, or the port of Houston down here. It's so important, it would cause all sorts of issues. Again, supply chain issues. Obviously, the flooding and everybody that lives directly on the coast, there would be a lot of danger there. Tons of evacuations. So much just distress and just chaos from people trying to push away. So we know what Harvey did. We know what Katrina did. If we had multiple events like that transpiring with the use of this weaponry, you can imagine the chaos would be so great, the whole country would be really taken aback.
Mm-hmm. Yeah, and I've heard for a very long time, April 2026, and especially it's really making its rounds on social media, and there's so many other things, all the comments, there's so many signs, earthquakes in strange places, it goes on and on and on. So I think it's just best that uh, you just remain grounded, cover your staples, make sure you have the things, and just do your best, but most of all, just try not to live your life in total fear. Try to take care of your temple and make yourself healthy, because it's your health. It's your health, and it's your practice that's never going to fail you, because that's part of you.
Yeah, absolutely. Have that spiritual practice, ground and root. We are ultimately consciousness. We are eternal beings by nature. We're just having a temporary human experience. So we know where we are at this point. There are people that are anchoring the light in various places, anchoring that light in to hold a frequency to help push the whole consciousness up. And again, it's all about awakening people so that you could get, again, the people that actually literally are going to be pushing buttons, pulling triggers. If we can change their consciousness or elevate their consciousness to where they refuse to carry out orders of such destructive magnitude, then we can really shift the paradigm. But at the same time, right now, it looks like we're getting very close to much, much bigger events. So do be prepared and listen to that little voice in your head, because that's your guides trying to get through to you and let you know what's happening. This was a video from 7+ years ago talking about these quakes, unusual quakes in Florida along the Alabama line. And we've covered this scenario many times because it's always resonated with me that that's kind of how the big events kick off here in the U.S., because it's always been over there as far as U.S. citizens not really having to find themselves in the firing line. We're not used to that, but things are changing. The world's paradigm is shifting, and we're going deeper into this apocalypse where all will be revealed.
And what's cuter than a baby moose frolicking about, not knowing how big he's going to be?
Yeah, and he's just excited to be in a body and to run around. He gets to play in this 3D reality for a while, and then he will go ahead and try life as something different. Yeah, it is a baby moose. Absolutely adorable. Thank you guys again for your support on Ko-Fi, Patreon, and memberships on YouTube. There are exclusives that go up there on a regular basis. Much love. We look forward to your comments. Source bless and namaste.
Namaste.